Hi, math students. Today we are going to learn the traditional method for dividing decimal numbers, okay? So last week we did dividing decimals with 100 square grids to have a good visual, and today we are going to be doing it the traditional way, okay? And you can use your calculators on this. I'm fine with that. I just want you to understand the process and how we get this information. So first we are going to watch a video tutorial on this lesson, and then from there we are going to look through the PowerPoint that I have for this lesson, okay? So here I go to the tutorial and we will watch this together.
How do we use the traditional method for dividing decimal numbers? The traditional method for dividing decimals involves a shortcut that makes it easier to work with the numbers. Remember the three names for numbers in a division problem. The dividend is the number that is being divided. The divisor is the number that divides the dividend. The quotient is the answer. When we have a decimal point in the divisor, we move the decimal point to make it a whole number. This makes it easier to divide. Let's look at the first problem. We move the decimal point one place in the divisor to make 34, and one place in the dividend to make 102. The quotient is 3. Now let's look at the second problem. Here we move the decimal point 1, 2 times in the divisor to make 25. We also move the decimal point 1, 2 places in the dividend. We have to add 2 zeros at the end to make 1,500. The quotient is 60. Let's look at the third problem. We move the decimal point 1, 2 places in the divisor, and get the whole number 2. We also move the decimal point in the dividend 1, 2 places. We now have 10 and 4/10. We divide to get the quotient 5 and 2/10. Let's look at one more problem. We move the decimal point one time in the divisor to get the whole number 12. We need to move the decimal point one place in the dividend. This gives us 1 and 56/100. Now we divide and get 13/100 for the quotient. It's important to remember to change both the dividend and the divisor by the same amount. How do we use good number sense when we divide decimal numbers? We can use estimation to help us decide where the decimal point should go in the answer to a division problem. Look at this problem. Where should we put the decimal point in the answer? We can round the numbers and rewrite the problem as 210 divided by 7. We know that 21 divided by 7 is 3. So the quotient must be 30. 30 is close to 31. So we put the decimal point between the 1 and 4. Here's another problem. Where should we put the decimal point in this answer? If we round the numbers, we have the problem 210 divided by 70. The quotient is 3. Because the quotient is about 3, we put the decimal point after the 3.
All right, so that's the tutorial for this week. Now I am going to show you the PowerPoint from the tutorial, okay? So I will pull it up here. All right, so this looks just like our pages in our book. So how do we use the traditional method for dividing decimal numbers? The traditional method for dividing decimal numbers involves a shortcut that makes it easier to work with the numbers. There are three names for the numbers in a division problem. So we just heard this in the tutorial. So we have the divisor, that's what we're dividing the dividend by, and then the quotient is the answer that we get. So example 1 shows how we change the divisor into a whole number in order to make it easier to divide. When we move the decimal point in one number, we must do it to the other. So in the divisor, when we move that decimal point to make it a whole number, we have to do the same thing to the dividend, okay? So let's look here at example number 1. Change the place values in the divisor and the dividend by moving the decimal points. Okay, so you can see here we have 3.4 divided by 10.2. Okay, so we have to change 3.4 into a whole number. So what we do is we bump that decimal over one place to make it 34. And if we do that here to the divisor, we have to do that to the dividend, okay? So here we see that in 10.2, we have to move this decimal over 1, and it's 102. So that changes it to 34 divided by 102, which is 3. Now you can see that they did the same process for the next 3, just like they did in the tutorial. So a huge thing to remember is don't forget to change both numbers by the same amount when you're moving that decimal, okay? So over here, they're just giving us a larger example of what we just talked about. Okay, so we know that 3.4 divided by 10.2 is 3. 10.2 is our dividend, 3.4 is our divisor, and 3 is the quotient. Okay, and we know that they did that by moving the decimal over one spot to make it a whole number, and then what you do to this one, you must do to the other one, okay? So they show us here for each of these divisors, we can see what they do here. So let's watch the arrows. They move it over and they get 34. They move that over 1 and they get 102. And their answer is 3. For the next one, they move 0.2 over twice to make 25. Now what they do to one, they have to do the other. 25 divided by, and there's no decimal here. You can see there's no decimal. So what they do is they bump it over twice, and then it becomes 1,500. Now the next one, and that is 60. The next one, they move over 2 times to make it 2, and then they move that over 2 times to make it 10.4, and our answer is 5.2. They move the next one over 1, and that becomes 12. What they do to one side, they do to the other. They move that over 1, and that becomes 1.56, and their answer is 0.13. Don't forget to change both numbers by the same amount. It's really important to remember. So how do we use good number sense when we divide decimal numbers? So remember, using good number sense is seeing what makes sense when you look at a problem. We've talked about this in a lot of our lessons, that if we want to be logical about it. So we know that when we do 8 divided by 2, it's not going to be 1,000, right? If we do 8 divided by 2, it'll be 4. We know that logically with good number sense, okay? So here's another exercise for thinking about decimal numbers when we divide. We did something similar when we multiplied decimal numbers in a previous lesson. Look at the equations in example 1. There are 2 equations with the correct digits in the answer. Where do we put the decimal point? Okay, so let's look at example 1. 210.38 divided by 6.7 equals 314. So first we round 210.38 to 210 and 6.7 to 7. We know that 210 divided by 7 equals 30. Because the answer should be around 30, we put the decimal point in place to make our answer close to 30. So where do you think that decimal needs to be? It needs to be right next to 30. So the answer is 31.4. So for the first we round 210. Oh, and then we do that for this one too. 210.38 divided by 67 equals 314. So first we round 210.38 to 210 and round 67 to 70. We know that 210 divided by 70 equals 3, so logically our answer is 3.4. These skills are important even if we do most of our computations using a calculator, which I said that you could do, but we still need to understand if we enter numbers incorrectly on a calculator, we need to be able to see that the answer does not make sense. So number sense strategies help us determine whether we have the correct answer. So use estimation to decide where the decimal point goes, okay? So that is what we are doing for this week is lesson 14. And we will do this first part of dividing decimals. And like I said, you can use your calculator for this. I am totally fine with that. So for today, listen to this lesson, which you are doing right now, and then pick one worksheet from that worksheet packet I sent home of various worksheets, and then email that to me when you've completed it. You can take a picture and show me. And then on Wednesday, I'll have you listen to a YouTube video on dividing decimals, and then please complete workbook page 39. And like I said today when we chatted earlier, we have no school Thursday, Friday. So if you have questions about math, please email me or set up a Google Hangout with me by emailing as well. I am more than happy to meet with you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.